We have Mr. Anand Joseph, who is the Vice President of Rhine in Dubai, as our keynote speaker. I'll just say a few words about Mr. Joseph. Anand Joseph is the Vice President of Sales and Product Management for the Blue Rhine General Trading and Trading Company, established in 1996 in Dubai. It is part of the Blue Rhine Group. Anand oversees the revenue growth and product strategy for the range of digital and static signage products that the company distributes throughout the GCC region from their network of branches in 6 countries. So GCC stands for Gulf Cooperation Council, that basically means all the Middle East countries. Blue Rhine is a leader in the distribution of products to the traditional signage industry and aims to be a one-stop shop for the digital signage industry. Anand joined the family business, it's his family business, in 2007 and has played a key roles in the company as a group expanded its regional network and grew its turnover from $18 million to over $100 million in the past decade. So this is a very, always when you look at the figures, these figures speak for themselves. So I'm very happy to have Mr. Anand joining us for the guest talk, and I welcome him to share his thoughts with you. Mr. Anand.
Good morning, everyone. It's really a tremendous honor to be here to talk to this new class of MBAs as we start this journey. And I really want to thank the administrators, the dean, and Professor Santanu for that introduction, and especially the corporate relations department who invited me. And all of you are now starting a very new chapter in your life, and what I'm sure is going to be very long and successful careers. So for most of you, this new chapter starts in a new country that may be unfamiliar to you now, but very soon that will change. I thought it would be fitting to talk about my personal history in business thus far and the lessons I've learned from being in new and unfamiliar places. As many of you enter into possibly the last stage of your academic career, I will at the ripe old age of 35 try to pass on the lessons I learned in my journey so far. It was important I clear that up because since I showed up to campus this morning, everyone has been trying to enroll me into your batch for some reason. I don't know why. In 1978, my father was a young engineer with a master's degree, and as you can imagine, back then there were not a lot of options for work in Kerala. Fortunately for him, his older brother was at the time working as a civil engineer in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, and he was able to convince his brother to bring him over to look for a job. It's almost similar to most of the stories of how people start their career in Dubai. My father's first job when he got to Nigeria was as a high school maths teacher in Lagos. It was the same job his grandfather, my grandfather, his father did his entire life while supporting a family of 9. It was a job my father did for 2 years to get on his feet, and from there he found a job in a telephone cabling company as they laid cables throughout Lagos, and it was early days of the country. At this point, his family started to arrange his marriage, as most traditional families do, and on his next visit to India, he was married to my mother, and he returned to Nigeria himself to start his new life, to prepare to start for his new life. But that was 1981 by then, and Nigeria was going through an economic crisis. The country was completely dependent on oil production. At that time, oil prices started falling, oil production dropped, and soon he was laid off from his job, just as he was about to start a new chapter in his life. He confided this to my mother, who was still in India, to let her know it might take longer to bring her over, and not to worry and inform her family in case they get worried about it, as he tries to secure a new job. But she was not worried. She let him know that it didn't matter, and even if he had to work as a taxi driver, she would stand by him as they undertook this next chapter in their life together. I think that was a major turning point in my father's life. I can only imagine the confidence and self-assurance he felt in spite of the significant challenge in front of him. And that's something important you have to remember also, to keep those people who give you that confidence and self-assurance. Keep them close. Eventually, he found a job in a water treatment chemical company that was starting up in 1982. I was born in 83, and he worked in that company for the next 15 years, all the way up to the managing director position. I'm pretty sure that confidence that my mother gave him and his natural empathy for others enabled him to put in his best work into his career while he was working in that company for the next 15 years. This was Nigeria in the 1980s. So as you can imagine, you had to have really good skills to execute, manage, and succeed, combined with unwavering confidence to reach that position in what became a major manufacturing company. So I went through school in Lagos, an Indian school. It was a phenomenal place to grow up and experience. There was also a huge Indian community there, and still is in Nigeria. In '95, my parents moved to Dubai to make a better life for the family. So they saw an opportunity, and also because around the late 80s, early 90s, Lagos had become very unsafe. You knew people who got carjacked or burglarized. Even our home got burglarized once at night while we were all in. Imagine if you're in a traffic jam, cars backed up for kilometers. A gang of robbers would come out, start smashing car windows, taking cash, watches, whatever they could get. It happened to my dad too, but fortunately he escaped without harm. So things like this were getting common. And this was a period in Nigeria's history where it's politically unstable, and it was politically unstable for many years, and it had the biggest population in Africa. When it was this was more a combination of a government that was politically corrupt, and also having this huge combination of large population under poverty meant that a lot of people tried to do whatever they could to survive. Nigerians are some of the kindest and nicest people you'll ever know. And those events are not representative of the people of Nigeria. It's more representative of what can happen when all those factors are combined. So in '95, they saw an opportunity to move to Dubai for a better life for the family and took it. They decided to venture into business and founded Blue Rhine General Trading in 1996. For the first few years, they almost lost all their savings, trying different failed business ventures. And in '98, through a series of unplanned and random events, they got into the distribution of acrylic. And that was the beginning of the company's foray into signage and advertising. During the early years of the company, I was not aware of really what was going on in the company or even what the business was about. I was in high school in Dubai, completed my A-levels, did fairly well in high school, definitely above average, but that gave me a real false sense of confidence in my academic abilities. The good grades helped me get into a very good university in the US, which my parents supported me for. I enrolled at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia in 2002. That false sense of confidence I got from my high school academics made me think I could do well in college too, without much effort. University was a great experience, the lifelong friends, the experience living in a new country, but I underperformed academically and graduated with below average grades and a BBA in finance and accounting. And it set me back when it came time to find a job. For international students, you really had to be at the top of the class to get a company to sponsor you, to invest in you, to get one of the few work visas that were available in the quotas. So after graduating with a degree in finance and accounting, I was sure about one thing. And that was I did not want to work in finance and accounting. But the fundamentals of the subject would eventually help me a lot along the way. Most colleagues in sales and marketing don't have that background and have to learn it later on or relearn it in their career just to understand the fundamentals of the business. And I think that gave me an edge. So after college, fortunately for me, our CEO was planning the company's entry into the Indian market. And at the time, he asked me to help set up the branch there. I moved to Bangalore in January 2007, 6 months after my graduation, and after 2 months of training at the head office here in Dubai. But the training didn't really prepare me for the reality. It was a dream situation on paper. Fresh B school grad, with entrepreneurial aspirations, startup in Bangalore, well capitalized to do the business. And back in 2007, India was the second fastest growing economy in the world. So on paper, everything looked good, but there was nothing fancy about the operations. We never grew to more than 5 people. The address was 5/1 Second Cross, Lal Bagh Road. Lal Bagh sounds fancy, but that address was in a slum. It was perfect for us. Kept the cost down, enough space to put in our stocks. It was eye-opening for me. Because here I am, literally grew up outside India my whole life, and now I'm in my homeland, having a culture shock for the first time in my life. Not a shock that was debilitating, but a shock of being in a completely unfamiliar environment, trying to get a business into profit. I never got it into profit. I was not ready for that assignment, and the company too. We thought we could take the same formula that worked in Dubai and apply it there. But so many different challenges we did not expect. Like, for example, even after you put in all the groundwork, the customer is ready to buy. He likes the product. He agrees on the price. And then at the final stage of the deal, he says, no bill. I don't want a bill. That is, he doesn't want an invoice, so he can avoid sales tax and corporate tax. It's completely different in India now with new legislation. But just 10 to 12 years ago, one of the reasons we had to lose out on business was because we didn't know how to do business in the parallel economy. We wanted to figure out how to be profitable while being transparent and playing by the rules. But the rules were different. I failed at it, and our CEO realized 2 years later it was not working, and what my strengths were, and moved me to Dubai to become a product executive. We eventually sold the company in India a few years later at a loss to exit the market. But working at that address was incredible. The word slum might give you negative connotations or impressions, but it wasn't in any form. It was an economy by itself, and we participated in it, getting food and tea, outsourcing our delivery services for our products to our customers, and cleaning services. The people were great. They kept the neighborhood clean, took care of each other in the community. I failed at bringing the business to a profit, but it taught me a lot to eventually figure out how to make a profit later in my career. So now I'm back in Dubai, working as a product executive. I've got this chip on my shoulder for not making it as a successful entrepreneur. But it had grounded me into what my strengths were and created a drive to do better and make the most of this new opportunity I was fortunate to get. I gradually took on more responsibilities, and there was one defining moment I can recall in late 2009. I'd taken on the task to update the company website with my colleagues, and I was writing most of the copy for the site, like the about page, the product page, services, etc. And every website needs a vision page, vision and mission. Up to that point, we didn't have one. So I started researching the vision and mission of the top companies at the time. And the Toyota Motor Corporation's vision at the time, they've updated it now, but at the time it was to be the most successful and respected company in the world. Extremely bold and ambitious. To be the most successful and respected. I liked it, so I stole it and I adapted it and made ours to be the most successful and respected company delivering products to the signage and architecture industries. I was not bold enough to put world in, but I thought I'll work towards that. Now that I had written it down, I had to attempt to work towards it with everyone. And that's something critical, I think, at that early days. And it's something I urge all of you to do. Pull out your phone at some point, write down what is your mission statement. What is your mission statement for this next year or for the next decade? It might create a spark in you to work towards something greater. And as someone I really admire said very rightly, you don't choose your passion chooses you. I never imagined while I was in university that signage would become a passion. I just applied myself as best as I could in every situation, and it all fell into place. My father took almost 15 years before he was confident enough to take the leap into entrepreneurship. and another 8 years for the company to come into a healthy position. So that's 23 years of hard work, struggle, sacrifices, failures from my parents to build a successful business. I know many of you will have entrepreneurial aspirations. That's healthy, it's B school. But you should know that it's extremely difficult, and the chances for success in the first 10 years of your career is almost close to impossible. But if you really have those aspirations, take risks in your job choices. Research and look into companies that are trying new and innovative ways to do business. Don't look for a job in a well-known company just for the prestige. You may end up in a vast ocean with very limited chances for growth or even different exposure to a variety of disciplines. Dubai is a very dynamic business environment, and there are many innovative and unique companies trying to make it. Look into them when it's time for your job search. Try to get in on the ground floor. You will have to make sacrifices in terms of pay and lifestyle, quality of life, but it's your only chance to do it. If you settle into a comfortable job, then you may eventually start a family, then it becomes even more difficult to take those risks. Or even have a cushion to allow you to take those risks. So do that early in your career. And you can even start while you're pursuing your MBA. Your university already offers many good internships. Try to take the really difficult ones. It will give you a better insight into yourself and how much you're willing to suffer to make it. And if you can find joy and satisfaction in that, you will learn a lot about yourself. Because the road to entrepreneurship is lined with failures, rejection, losses, and it can break most people. It's not really for most of us. I'm definitely not an entrepreneur in the purest form, like my parents. But I'm entrepreneurial within the framework of the company I work in. And many of the senior leaders in our company also have that freedom to be entrepreneurial. So that also is an option for you. Many forward-thinking businesses do need the entrepreneurial mindset to work within a framework, and they reward those who are good at it. And many times much better than they would be rewarded if they tried to venture out on their own. And they provide resources and teams to help you reach those goals of the business. So being an entrepreneur today has many iterations and versions that you can consider and work towards. But it will still come with only learning, growth, and a willingness to take those risks. Just like the entrepreneurs in the purest form, without the deep pitfalls that they had to face. Let me tell you more about what I do. I work in the signage and advertising industry. It's the behind-the-scenes part of the industry. Never heard of, but our work is seen in your daily life. Our industry is made up of the companies that put up signs on top of buildings, like the one on top of this entrance to your campus. We put in the visual graphics like the ones in the sports store depicting your favorite athletes in the latest gear. We design and build stages for events and expos. When you go to your favorite fast food restaurant and look up from the cash register, we put in that menu, printed and put in that menu that you choose your meal from. And now that has evolved into screens that show video and dynamic content for you to make your selection. If you go to the supermarket to buy groceries, as you're at the checkout counter, there's that display holding all the new candy and tempting you to make that last minute purchase. We put that there. Never really noticed unless it's missing. If you came to this campus for the first time and urgently needed to find the toilet, and there's no one around and no visible signs, that's one of those times you might think, oh, where's the signage? And we do that too, the toilet signs, so don't go through the wrong door. The emergency signs that will direct you in case there needs to be an evacuation. It's very different from the advertising industry that they will teach you about in business school. A lot of the advertising you might focus on here is above the line and the creative aspects of getting the customer to remember the brand or how to influence them to buy that new flavor of the product. This side of the industry, below the line as you call it, is very imaginative and technical in many aspects too. We bring the visual or the creative's idea to reality. All of these applications I mentioned encompass the wide areas of applications in our industry. And it's very vast. Blue Rhine, the company I work for, specializes in the distribution of the raw materials and products that are needed to manufacture most of those examples I gave you. We seek out the customers who will buy the screens and the software for the menu board at your favorite restaurant. We seek out the display makers who will buy the material from us to make that stand for the candy at the checkout counter. We work with a printer who will buy the material to print the graphics and apply it in the sports store. We look out for the startup below-the-line manufacturer who wants to get started in the industry and needs machines from us to cut the wood and metal to make the display stand. These are our customers, and they operate as manufacturers for the brand owners, creative agencies, and even architects. I'm responsible for the sales and product management in the company, so I do everything from managing the sales team to doing cold calls myself and trying to generate sales for our big-ticket items or new products with prospective buyers. Sales is something that I never saw myself entering into when I was your age, but over time I have realized how critical selling skills are to most functions in business, even if you have to work in purchase, accounts, HR, admin. The skills you gain from trying to sell, like negotiation, compromise, rejection, can help you in many different aspects of your life. If you can get good at sales and any other specific area of business, it can be an unstoppable combination of skills. There will be a lot of sales jobs. Everyone should try them, even internships if you can. Even if you don't feel you could be good at sales. It's a very critical skill you need to learn if you want to be in the business world. It will prepare you for anything as long as you keep at it. With sales experience, you will face a lot of rejection. As long as you can use that rejection as a learning experience to improve on the next call or pitch, you will get better. You'll face objections of every kind, and you'll have to figure out how to counter them at the next time or in that moment. Because it's a 100% chance someone else will repeat those same objections, and it takes a lot of practice to counter them effectively and convincingly. I do a lot of sales calls, and facing objections gives me a lot of feedback in terms of my product, how to position it, how to price it, and how to train my team to face those objections when they pitch themselves. I've taken the same product to two different customers on the same day and had two polar opposite reactions. And it happens quite often. I take the same product, the product to the customer in the morning, and he tells me, oh, it's too cheap. It's made in China. I don't buy any products from China. I prefer branded products, something from Europe. And in that moment, I have to figure out how to counter him. If I know what product he's considering, and I've done my homework, I can give the pros and cons. And with the same product in the afternoon, I'll go to another customer, and he'll say, oh, it's too expensive. How can I spend that much? I need something that costs only half of that. So-and-so product costs only so much. And I have to try and figure out how to convince him why that product only costs so much and why mine costs more. So you have to be very flexible, and it takes a lot of experience to figure out how to manage those situations. That kind of experience is invaluable, regardless of the type of role you may end up in. It teaches you how to respond professionally, diplomatically, and working with different personalities and nationalities in any of those roles, you will face objections or resistance in many cases. And being prepared to handle it in a logical and methodical way is an invaluable skill. And those are the people who become managers and gain additional responsibilities and growth in organizations, as they are seen as the problem solvers. Another aspect of my role in the organization is marketing. I'm embarrassed to say this, but it really took me a long time to really understand the difference between sales and marketing. It seems more obvious in the B2C world, because for marketing in the B2C world, the marketing manager will take out billboards, radio spots, or sponsored posts on social and call it marketing. And it is marketing. It's a big driver of sales for them. In B2B marketing, it's much more subtle, much more low-key. But new social platforms has made it much more easier for B2B companies to start marketing directly to their target market with much more accuracy than B2C. And I think there's a huge opportunity for those of you interested in marketing to look into that. Because now, with significantly lower cost, it is much more effective using either video, audio, or text to reach directly to the target customer to build build brand awareness. This type of content marketing is much lower in cost compared to just a few years ago when B2B companies had to solely rely on business directories, SEO, and trade magazines, which were very expensive in comparison to the value they provided. With almost every individual having an account on all the social platforms, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or WhatsApp, and depending on the industry, it's easier now to target your ideal clients. And even if the content doesn't gain traction immediately or gets noticed, it's there forever. It's there forever for any potential customer to come across when doing their research for their next purchase. The majority of all purchases, whether in B2C or B2B, are done with some online research first. Even most of us will consider buying something new only after going online, checking all the comparative products, the pricing, and where to buy it from. And the same is prevalent in B2B. And that's why content about the business, its products, is very effective. And the most effective type of this content is the informational ones. So the landscape for marketing is changing in many exciting and new ways. It's already changed in B2C, and there's a lot more to be done in B2B. As many companies try to find their footing in this new marketing era, that gap creates a lot of opportunity for many of you to take advantage of by being early executors and jumping on marketing teams of B2B companies to help them navigate through social and content marketing strategies. And there are many companies seeking the right talent to help them execute on that. So you have to be observant and try to find those kind of opportunities. The product management part of my job is managed with a team of product managers specialized on specific products for various applications. Specialization that is achieved only through experience by facing problems head-on and resolving them, especially failing at them and learning from them. We have to be constantly studying up on the latest trends, technological improvements, and even products or applications that may be in decline so that we invest the company's money on the right strategies going forward. And even if certain products are in decline, we have to make a plan to divest and avoid future losses. As with any business, it's so important to continue to stay relevant in the midst of fierce competition. Because we were never the biggest, but we became the biggest in many of the product categories we entered into by paying attention to the customer needs and, most importantly, understanding how much they were willing to pay for it. Every market is a little different, and what might work in the US or India is unlikely to work here just based on taste and budget. Many of those functions that I described require the team members to have very specific knowledge, and the most successful of them have gained it through genuine curiosity and passion, rather than just training. Not that we don't train, but there's only so much you can absorb from training. There's nothing like using the basic skills and training you receive and then going out in the market and failing a bunch of times. Only then you gain real experience and knowledge. This will apply to most job functions and roles, so keep that in mind. Such specific knowledge is only learned on the job, not in school. And having specific knowledge also gives you leverage, internally and externally, to do your job to the best of your abilities. If you attain that knowledge or your knowledge just by training, your future employer can easily train someone else and replace you. Specific knowledge is often highly technical or creative. It cannot be outsourced or automated. And this applies to every job function that you can think of. And you can be very micro-specific to any industry, region, or country. By being observant in signage, materials, and staying up to date, it has allowed us to enter into niche segments for building and construction, interior fit-out, and hopefully many more other categories in the future, which we can try to be successful at. Being observant is an important part of work life, an aspect I constantly try to get to bring into my personal life by being observant and critical of my ideas for my own growth, in the hope that it will allow me to make the most of the opportunities, good fortune, and luck that I've had. So you too should think about this opportunity you have now at this university and how you can make the most of it. Luck and good fortune will not always be there to help you in life. Life is also filled with tragedies and struggles. And if you use those opportunities when they're in front of you, the fruits of it can help you along during those dark and difficult periods. The path to finding your way in your career is something you cannot rush. You'll have to try a lot of things courageously so that your passion finds you. The answers usually are right in front of us, but for most of you, and especially at this juncture in your life, it may seem very distant or unattainable. The journey will reveal what is important to you and where you can find your purpose in life. It may be in the business world, or it may not be. But you have started the journey, and you'll find the purpose along the way. And as long as you observe and overcome all the hurdles that will come with it, you'll be fine. So good luck and best wishes to all of you on this special occasion, and thank you.
So could you share some thoughts about, like, when you're looking for something, what are the things you should look for, like the multicultural environment they'll be working in, the kind of expectations of behavior, the kind of something to talk about that?
Yeah. In Dubai, you have a mix of sometimes multicultural companies, and some are not so multicultural. It just happens that way. You might find companies that are more skewed towards a certain Arab descent, or a certain Indian descent, or a certain northern descent. This is quite common, especially in small, medium enterprises, and even sometimes in the larger ones. And I think you should look into that, because even if it is not very multicultural today, depends on the perspective of the management, who are the people who are entering new into the company, who are the people growing in those companies, because sometimes you hear horror stories about, oh, I'll never get promoted in this company or become a manager in this company because I'm not of this descent. That may be true. It is true in some companies, and it's a tough situation, but you can look around, you do research into the companies, who are the management, are they of diverse backgrounds. Maybe a company that started off not so diverse is moving forward in that direction. And at the end of the day, most companies have to move in that direction, because Dubai is extremely multicultural, with customers of different nationalities and perspectives. And it also, it's very different in all the other GCC countries. So it's something that I think you should all look into. I know you came to study in Dubai, and maybe you're thinking maybe I'll stay back in Dubai and work, but you know, there's a lot of opportunities in countries like Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, Qatar, where the job market might not be as competitive, especially for MBAs or people as well educated as you will be. So look into those markets too. There's a lot of opportunities there. They're you can say definitely an earlier stage in their cycle of maturity compared to Dubai. So being there early helps a lot, and so a lot of companies are looking for talent to work in those environments, because everybody wants to work in Dubai, but not a lot of people want to go there. So look into those opportunities and take advantage of it. Yeah.
First major challenge you faced when you entered your talent?
It's a good question. I'll expand on the answer a bit. I don't know how many of you have a family business or thinking about entering a family business. I didn't want to enter the family business initially, because there's all these stereotypes of, one is, I've worked in the summers in the business and things like that, and, you know, maybe sometimes some people will give you what do you say, preferential treatment. So I didn't want to get into the family business for that reason alone. It played in the back of my mind. So that's why when it was an opportunity to go to Bangalore, I took that up, because it's kind of starting fresh and new team and such. But that was probably something that on the back of my mind. But once I entered into the business, I realized that was not the case. I was just unnecessarily worrying about the wrong thing, because especially in Indian culture, people appreciate it if the younger generation is coming in and taking interest in the business and trying to find the way forward for the succession or the future of the company, because everybody wants to work in a company that's growing and thinking, forward thinking. So that's a long-winded answer, but apart from the challenges, I'm just not being prepared. Just You know, you show up in India and you're in this warehouse, and the first container is a challenge every day. One funny one was, it's not funny, but our first container was arriving, coming from Taiwan, and Lalbagh Road, if you know it, is, if you know Bangalore, is in the city. So we chose it so we can be close to customers. But like I said, in the slum as well. And the containers coming from the port through the city into this tiny road, blocking all the traffic, and already traffic's bad. And by the time it reaches there, I forget it was a customs or tax office, they followed the container. They saw this container trailing through the city. They're like, oh, who's this going to? And it shows up at our doorstep with them inside. And then they start opening it up and asking different questions like, why is this product code on the carton wrong? And it was very frustrating because we did everything right. You know, we imported on the correct duty code. We paid, till today you have to pay 37% duty on the product, and after that put your margin on it. So it's and then obviously they had asked for some favors, financial favors, and then sorted it out. But those are the challenges you face. It can be there's all kinds of challenges. But family business, yeah, it's an interesting subject, and it's interesting experience, and also it's going back to that question. Also, I wanted to add a big part of my success in the and why I became passionate over time was I started at Bangalore as a small team, but I worked with a lot of other people apart from my family. You know, I was very curious and inquisitive about the business with the people who were much more experienced in the business and became my mentors and guided me. So that played a big factor in my interest in the family business. And it's a very interesting, dynamic place to work if it's the right elements are there, and it's a continuous learning process. Interestingly, also our family did a families and business course at Harvard. We got an opportunity, like me, my brother, and parents, and you get to explore a lot of the difficult topics of family business, which sometimes are never covered, and it's something that we are hoping to take it to the next level by with the right strategies and products, and also with the contribution of the senior leaders and the family itself.
Any other reason?
Thank you so much.
No, let's not.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That was very exciting. So I wanted to be good at it, so I applied myself to it, and I became passionate about it.